When 31-year-old Gerald Gallego first laid eyes on Charlene Williams at a Sacramento poker club in 1977, he was instantly captivated. A full decade, his junior, petite blonde Charlene looked young enough to be in school, which only amplified her allure for Gerald. While on the surface, they appeared to be polar opposites, the horrifying truth of how alike they were deep down would soon emerge, setting them on a path of destruction across 3 states. Some would argue Gerald's fate was set from birth. His mother resorted to prostitution to get by, while his father earned the dubious distinction as the first man executed in Mississippi's gas chamber. Though some, born into such circumstances, rise above, Gerald dedicated himself to outdoing his parents' misdeeds. At 13, Gerald had his first serious brush with the law for sexually assaulting a 6-year-old girl, a mere slap on the wrist in hindsight. By 30, his rap sheet boasted 23 arrests and 7 felonies. Yet time and again, the system's revolving door set him loose on society. Gerald's dark charisma attracted no shortage of women despite his twisted quirks. He was married 6 times by 30, once so hastily he forgot to tell his current wife. But Gerald's most depraved obsession was with young girls, including his own daughter Krista, born in 1964. To Gerald, Krista was no precious gift, but an object of lust. When she turned 6, the molestation began. It would take years for her to muster the strength to end the abuse for good. Charlene, unlike Gerald, was raised with every advantage by doting parents. A bright student, she walked the straight and narrow until her teens, when drugs and alcohol rendered her a mere shell of her former self. Desperate to shake up her dull existence, she had 2 marriages and divorces under her belt by 20. Then she met Gerald, the man who would irrevocably alter her life in ways she never imagined. Just months into their volatile relationship, Gerald's perverse desires were already warping Charlene. She learned his arousal hinged on youth. No grown woman would do. To appease him, she shaved her body hair and took on Krista's name in their twisted role-playing. But even this disturbing charade wasn't enough. In July 1978, to mark Gerald's 32nd birthday, Charlene gave her blessing as he sexually violated 14-year-old Krista. 2 months later, Krista reported her father's abuse. Trying to satisfy Gerald without involving his daughter further, Charlene seduced a teenage girl for a threesome. The plan backfired when jealousy rendered Gerald impotent at the sight of Charlene's passion with another. They agreed the solution was to use girls as disposable sex objects to be discarded once the fun was over. And so, in September 1978, Charlene lured Rhonda, 17, and Kippy, 16, to their deaths with the promise of marijuana. Holding the girls captive, Gerald repeatedly raped them as Charlene drove into the night. In the morning, Gerald unceremoniously executed the teens in a field. High on depravity, Gerald and Charlene married 3 weeks later. But in October, Krista's abuse allegations caught up with Gerald. Livid over her betrayal, Gerald ordered Charlene to abort their unborn child. By June 1979, Gerald's urges resurfaced. At a Reno fair, Charlene spied ideal targets: Brenda, 14, and Sandra, 13. Tricked with an offer of easy money, the girls endured unspeakable abuses by the couple before Gerald bludgeoned them to death. In April 1980, the Gallegos kidnapped Stacy and Karen, both 17, from the same mall as before, subjecting them to drawn-out torment before snuffing out their young lives. 2 months later in Oregon, they picked up pregnant hitchhiker Linda Aguilar, 21. Her condition spoiled Gerald's twisted fun. After a lackluster rape attempt, he beat and strangled Linda, leaving her buried alive. Next was Virginia Michelle, 34, abducted in July as she locked up the bar where she worked. At the Gallegos' apartment, pretty Virginia suffered days of torture and humiliation. Despite her desperate pleas for death, Gerald made his fun last as long as he could before finally granting her wish. The couple's depravity was spiraling out of control. In the early hours of November 1st, 1980, Gerald impulsively snatched Mary Sowers, 21, and her fiancé Craig Miller, 22, from under a crowd's nose as Charlene watched in disbelief. At a deserted lake, Gerald dispatched Craig with a bullet. Against Charlene's weak protests, they imprisoned Mary in their home as their personal sex slave before Gerald put 3 bullets in her head. This time, witnesses took down the Gallegos plates as they fled. After a 2-week run, the killer couple were nabbed, trying to collect a money transfer. Charlene, now pregnant again, jumped at a plea deal, 16 years for her damning testimony against Gerald. In January 1981, she birthed a son in prison to be raised by her parents as she served her time. Meanwhile, her vivid account of their shared atrocities helped secure death sentences for Gerald in the murders of Sowers, Miller, Redican, and Twiggs, though the latter was overturned on appeal. Upon release in 1997, Charlene wasted no time painting herself Gerald's victim too, as if she hadn't willingly delivered lambs to slaughter and participated in rapes herself. Only the stark reality of a cell made her distance herself from the crimes she'd savored. Cancer finally delivered Gerald his just desserts in prison on July 18, 2002. While fixating on Krista undoubtedly fed his compulsion to defile girls, he was a deviant from puberty long before she was born. More than pedophilia, this sadist's ultimate turn-on was pure, unadulterated terror. For Gerald, fear was a potent aphrodisiac, and Charlene, his willing accomplice, was all too happy to deliver it to him on a silver platter in the form of innocent young lives, the excitement in the moment eclipsing any shred of humanity. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and stay safe out there, lads.